Just a little about me. I'm Mr. Smallman, product manager here on Rival Kingdoms. Joined the team just this year, so as you heard all of the stories about all of the things we learned on Rival Kingdoms, I came in after we'd learned all of that. So we've got all sorts of interesting things, and what I'm going to be talking about today is going to be how you run a LiveOps game, in particular when it's in its elder phase. Rival Kingdoms came into a very interesting point, which I'll get to. But this is, the big takeaway of this is the tools that we use. If you're running an Elder LiveOps game, tools are your best friend, and you'll come away with that impression fairly quickly from this. So, tools, tricks, LiveOps. So, just bits about Rival Kingdoms. If you're not familiar with it, Rival Kingdoms came out in May 2015. Fantastic, fantastic launch. Editor's choice everywhere we could get it. Incredibly great results in terms of reviews. We self-published it, didn't need any help, and it was very, very big. And it's doing fantastically. Right now, it lives and dies on its LiveOps. And there's a particular reason for that, is we encountered a problem with Rival Kingdoms fairly early, which is that we went dark fantasy in the build and battle genre. Build and battle being the most profitable genre out there in the world, dark fantasy saying we're going to take that and make it even nerdier. So we got into this situation where we could not, even though the game was doing incredibly well, we could not profitably buy advertising to get new users into the game in any meaningful sort of way. But we were making a decent amount of money off of the game because of its incredible performance. We were put into this problem, did we focus on this incredibly profitable section of the player base that we had right now, or did we try and solve this sort of funnel problem and get new people in? Did we put more train in front of the track or put more trains on it? What, after we got to a couple of months of running Rival Kingdoms, definitely started making more track. And so there's a particular way to do this. What we ended up doing is we changed our sales strategy from trying to monetize the core loop to a purely event-based strategy. What this means is that we had boosters and event currencies that were particular for one single event. Now, these were the things that you bought in order to compete very, very well to get the permanent item, in this case, the Ancients, which were the most powerful thing, the most desirable piece of content that we created for the players. But they had to buy boosters and things like that in order to really, really compete. Not necessarily buy them, they could get them in the game as well, but it was very, very easy to purchase them during that particular event. Now, what this meant is that our main premium currency of diamonds, we heard about how we had a diamond inflation problem, and the worst part about this is that we weren't getting any other players that are going, like, okay, well these players won't be inflated, we can focus on them. That was really not an option by the time we got to this point on Rival Kingdoms. So what we did is we moved the diamonds as a sink into our frequently updated gacha chests, very similar to what we were doing on Transformers, while staying a core loop currency. So this meant that players would particularly buy the bundles and things like that that had the boosters for the event as the first shot at the most important and desirable content. But if they had the diamonds, then that was the second shot, which a few months down the line, or a few weeks down the line, depending on the Ancient, that would go into the gacha chests. So the diamonds were still valuable, but we moved everything, the desirability, into the event specifically. Second thing we did is, because we had some inflation problems, we introduced controlled currencies. We introduced Mithril in late 2015 and crafting earlier this year. And these currencies are only distributed in bundles and events. So players just playing the game regularly are going to get little, or in some cases none of these. But if they're playing every weekend, even if they're not spending, but they're playing and engaging in the events as a regular part of the way they play the game, then they will get them. So in fact, usually with our controlled currencies, we didn't try to monetize them early at all, but we used them to sort of create the sense that the events are where you play the game to get all of the interesting things you are after. So with Mithril, we actually put a flat cap on it that allowed us to, if we ever needed to get a shot in the arm of revenue, or we needed to change the defenses, so Mithril was a defensive currency. If we ever needed to change the balance of defense because we had released too many powerful Ancients, we could then just raise the Mithril cap, and then people would start getting more mithril, and thus giving us the ability to create demand at a moment's notice. But the key here is tied directly into LiveOps and events. And we created currency specifically around that and slowly pushed the game towards a system where that was the more important way to progress and get the interesting content. And so, if you're running an event on something like Rival Kingdoms, very different than something that's got a bit more robust economy than like Transformers has. And so, because a large amount of your players are going to be they've been involved in the game. The most amount of our revenue comes from the players who were playing the game in the very first month it came out. Our golden cohort on Rival Kingdoms is about, it's ridiculous. But we make about 10% conversion in terms of every live event, and a significant portion of that is most of the players spend from that original golden cohort. And so we found out the perfect way to do this for these players, because we're not Game of War. We can't just say, oh, you're a huge spender, we're going to put you in a different server over here and let you all fight amongst each other. So it has to be fun if you're spending nothing, it has to be fun if you're spending $5, and it has to be fun if you're spending $100. And all three of those are equally important. And the reason for that is that players are in alliances that do not have universal spend tiers. There's a few that will compete, but they'll compete for anything. They're just competitive players. They will just get each other, they join into alliances that are just competitive heavy spenders. But if we relied on just them, even though they've been around forever, we would not be as successful as we are. So you have to accept that, okay, this kingdom might have a $100 spender every week, or a $500 spender every week, and 6 or 7 people who don't spend in the same kingdom. And your events have to be built so that all of those people have fun together, and it doesn't look like, okay, it's only for this one particular group or the other. But on the other hand, you do have to say, okay, this person who wants to spend $500 on this event, not just in your core economy systems, but in this particular event, that person has to be able to go and spend that $500, and they have to be able to look good among the people who aren't spending anything. And so this is where, Rival Kingdoms has really, really been focused. A large percentage of our revenue comes from large kingdom events, where kingdoms are placing against other kingdoms, and they require coordination. And this is the thing we sort of found out, is that the fun, when you get into a very, very heavy Elder game, it is not in winning. It is organizing other players to do some stuff and feeling like the boss. And that is why people keep playing. In fact, we see that the people who are like kings of kingdoms, they've been around forever and ever, but they don't necessarily spend as much. But they prompt other players to spend, or they ask other players to spend. And that sort of that socially happens naturally. You can't, if you don't design your events around that, it is going to happen like that anyway. And so we've designed our events around that. The idea of that organizing and figuring things out. We see people who jump from one kingdom to another, and then they create feeder kingdoms, and then they hybrid, and then they move up, and then there's drama as this person left this kingdom to go this kingdom, or this person got kicked out, they formed their own kingdom, and they're going to go beat those guys. That's why they play. And so you need to create your events with that in mind. And so this plays into the sort of cadence sort of situation, because the heavy social part is the exhausting part. We make the most money off of our very, very social events, but players find it much harder to turn down their friends asking them to do something than if we as game developers go, all right, go do this event this weekend. They can go, screw you, Space Ape, we're not doing it. But if their kingdom head goes, I'm going to kick you out if you guys don't do this event, they're like, oh, okay, and that's where the stress comes about. And when we ask people, we take advantage of those sort of social dynamics, that's where the exhaustion really comes in. They're very rarely going to leave and go, oh, I'm not going to play this game because, it's just getting too expensive. Usually they'll leave, it's like, I can't do this for this guy, I'm sorry, I've got to leave. And then they all talk to us. And so this is the main thing to take away, is that the social part is the fun part. And it has to be designed, and unless, like I said, you're running a Game of War sort of thing where you can just segment your spenders into the complete environments where they don't, where the $1,000 don't touch the $5, which most of us aren't necessarily running, and we certainly aren't running on Rival Kingdoms. This is the way to run it. Steven here does not like public speaking, but he certainly likes running our LiveOps systems and tools. He is a machine. Machines don't talk that much, so he's just going to show us actually some of the tools that we use here. I'm going to give some running commentary. All right, so this is our event system. So we can create an event, and if we haven't created any new content that needs to go into the client, we can create a brand new event in a matter of minutes. In fact, this event that's up here right now, you can see all the localization strings from our regularly updated localization server. And this one is a midweek event. We're just experimenting with, okay, we're going to do something very, very low, low intensity. He's just set it there so that only the people who just started the game, we could just immediately create an event for your level 1, you just came in, we got Apple featuring, whole lot of new players coming in, boom, event just for you. We could do that. We can set the start and the end date, so if we want to extend an event, we're like, oh, this is doing pretty well. We were going to make it go a little bit longer. If we wanted to communicate that to the players, we have the tools to do it. He's now changing what you need to do to actually win the event. Normally it's the event resource that we give. And so now he's taking it from a personal event to a kingdom event. No, Steven's not going to do that. Because he does not want to exhaust our players. He knows better. Now these are the prizes. So any prize we've ever given once, it's in the tool. We can give it as many times as we like. And so this is on a leaderboard reward. So this is the first person on the leaderboard. They would get to 10 rings. That is a very, very crappy first prize. But yeah, and so the tie break. Yeah, so it's like, okay, whoever was first to score the amount. So we can change that around. We ran into some trouble with that before. And so there's a totalizer as well, which we were talking about before. This is the tiered sort of system, the amount of points, and you can see the sort of points in. So now he's going to bump that up. 10,000 gold. All right, cool. So 2,400 points, getting double what they were got. Now he's giving some different boosts, changing that around. So yeah, so he's now made it so it's a bit more rare boost. We might make some more money selling those. And these are the types of things that we do absolutely every day in LiveOps. This is what it looks like here at Space 8. Yeah, and that's about it in terms of yeah, the different agents that we can use and some of the wonderful art from our marketing team. Steve can, and once again, if we've ever done it once, we can do it again. So allows us to reuse certain events. So if we do an event that's based on a particular agent, getting them up one particular ascension material, we can do that. Steven's just now showing, yes, if we got brand new art that we've never used before, we can actually just put it directly in there, upload it, and it's immediately on our server. And since this is already live, it doesn't let people like me break it. So we also have our bundle tool. So this is really good. Now, one of the wonderful things, and this is the one I use every day, is that, as you mentioned, when, there is sort of spending sort of cadence. If people spend a whole lot of money, they're not necessarily going to spend again very soon. But the upside of that is if they don't spend any money, then you can try selling them some more stuff a couple of days later because they didn't actually spend anything. So if we have a poorly performing event, we can use this midweek, and we frequently do midweeks, in order to go and sort of sell things to players. And we can set the SKU to what the actual price point is. So that means we don't ever have to update a bundle to Apple or anything like that. We just set the price point and attach something to it. We can set the number of purchases, which is really good for controlling inflation. If you're not building bundles that have limited purchases, you know, definitely want to do that. You don't want somebody just spending 1,000 getting the same sort of thing, same sort of EV. You want that sort of control. We can target it, of course, by country. You can see the segments. This is what Fred was talking about earlier, that most likely $9.99. That's from our actual analytics segment that's been put into here that allows us to target the people who are most likely to spend $9.99. We don't use these as much as they're going to be used in Transformers, specifically because the way that user base is condensed. We pretty much want to show everybody everything at all times, but one of the things we can do, if you want to know the requirements up there, Steve, yeah, is that if people are at the top level and they've maxed everything out, we can show a bundle to everybody but them, which means that if we can sort of help players catch up. We can ramp the EV of that bundle up. So if we're like, we want everybody to be Stronghold 17 so that we can move on to Stronghold 18 and release that and have the most amount of demand, we can say, okay, you're Stronghold 16. 16 and 15, we're going to give you a really, really good bundle to help you catch up. 17s don't see it, they don't exploit it, and they don't get ahead, and they don't get inflated. So that's been really powerful for us in the last couple of months. So Steve's just putting up our Black Friday strings, and once again, he's going to probably pull some images from the internet. And yep, and so boom, get that Nigeria ticket from Art, and it is in the game. And yeah, and then it's updated, and yeah, and the bundle goes out. Next thing we want to see, feature flags. Yes, this is really, really great in terms of making sure your development LiveOps is really, really agile. If you build something and you're not quite sure when you want to use it, you want to time it so that the economy is absolutely at the right time. You don't have to wait and then wait and get the client and everything to update. We build things in feature flags and use LiveOps to turn them on and off. And if we have features that we don't want to use anymore, they've sort of been depreciated, we don't have to update anything due to this having the ability to do so right in the LiveOps. So yeah, we've got some features in there. If any Rival Kingdoms fan will see some secret, sexy things that haven't come in yet. But yeah, now he's... what are you turning on, Steve? I was pre-prod, it's fine, okay. And the last thing, oh yes, and for certain things that we update, like one of the things we're doing and building new tools all the time is more and more streaming. So pretty much anything that's in the game, if we take the time, we can build so that we don't have to wait for a client update. We can actually pull this in and stream it. And so say we have an evolution material, that actually normally has to be a client update, or maybe but that's pretty quick, but waiting on the art takes a whip. We don't want to wait for the second client update to actually get it out, and we can actually, once the art is in, boom, stream it. Now this gets a little bit cumbersome as people are downloading much more every time they log in, but Steven can go into our handy CMS system, go there, and input that. And then with the next content update that we do, which does not require the player to do anything further aside log into the game, they will get that new material, and then we will bake that into another client update later. Yeah, and so, all right, awesome. Big hand for Steven. And so yeah, just going over our tools allows us to change our goals and rewards and timings for an entire event on the fly. And so we're like, oh, sentiment's not doing so great. That maybe or maybe they're really excited for it. We think we can make a little bit more money. We can maybe get them to push a little further. We can do that. So we can complete, as long as there's no new rewards or art, we can create a complete event in a matter of minutes. Live bundle tools allow us to create bundles on the fly. If one bundle we think is going to work doesn't work, we can just put up another one, and then we measure, of course, everything in the economy. But we don't really have to worry about if our event cadence is weak. It doesn't mess everything up in terms of the revenue for the game, because then we can use those controlled currencies especially. That's where they get really, really helpful. One of the most frequent things we do is do midweek bundles with controlled currencies after particular events. Sometimes if it's intended to be weak, if it's a one-finger event, or sometimes if we didn't intend it to be weak. But we've always got that backup, and that live bundle tool allows us to do that. The reward systems, so anything, as you've seen there, anything we do frequently that affects events, we make sure that it's in the tool. And streaming art, as we've gone over before, fresh art, more excitement, better revenue. And so if we need to change what an item is or things like that, LiveOps changes every day. We try to make sure we're not waiting for anything to get things out. One thing, so the last couple of things I'll talk about is the Space State VIP program, and I'll also talk about sort of how we measure the data on events for an Elder game. How many people here have heard of the Space State VIP program? Okay, cool. Yes, Fred. Now our VIP program, if you're familiar with VIP programs and things like Game of War, where the more money you spend, the more tiers you go up, and that's very, very blatant and shown off to everybody. That's not particularly how we run ours. Ours is very, very, very customer service based, and we use this because it's not just whales. It includes streamers, large kingdom leaders, as well as large spenders. Yes, you spend a lot of money, you become a VIP, of course. But the thing that we offer them is not necessarily better deals. We do that sometimes, but it's not the reason we sell the VIP program. The main thing we sell them is communication with the devs on a regular basis, and communication with the company. And so that works both ways. This is how we sort of really measure sentiment, and it's the best temperature check we have, as Andrew was mentioning, on terms of are we burning out people with fatigue? Or are they going to be excited about a new feature and things like that we're doing? It's often very stressful, as they're the most opinionated players, of course. But the thing is, we use band chat for this. We used to use Line. But the key to remember is that these influential players are already creating these chat rooms. They are already creating band chats. They are already creating line chats. And the people who play this, play the organization game, they use these tools to do that. And the best thing we can do is make sure we are there with them while they're doing that. And that is one of the important reasons why the VIP program exists. They benefit from getting information from us, and we benefit from getting information from them. It's not just, you spend this much money and you get this much of a better deal. It is that we have dedicated people specifically to making sure that we do this better than anybody else that other customers could find trying in competing games. And so data analysis, last thing I want to talk about day to day. Definitely we measure absolutely every event, how much each currency has changed, whether every particular thing that could have been inflated, particularly things we sold, whether those things have changed after the event. And we do break this down by progression and spend tier especially. So if people who are normally spending $500 are getting inflated and nobody else is, then that's, that gives us an indication of maybe we want to stop adding so much value to that, to the $100 price tiers. Still giving them a bonus and everything for it, but trying to get that under control. And progression, we also want to see, okay, like, are the 17s way, way, way ahead of the 16s to the point the 16s are going to, take months to catch up, thus leaving us a sort of catch-up bundle strategy and things like that. And as the game gets very much into an elder game sort of phase, averages become less useful. I'm sure all of the data people are like, averages are crap anyway. But it's particularly crap when you're getting a very, very condensed player base that's behaving a bit more homogeneously. So we frequently look at not only smaller segments, but distribution. Distribution is your best friend as your game gets older. So you can sort of see here the massive differences between, if we look at something, the distribution of a particular item by heavy spenders and lower spenders. And so like, all the heavy spenders sort of bought that. And so these are the types of things, as your game gets into a sort of rival kingdoms phase, that you really want to look at. Averages stop becoming your friend. All right, and that's it for me.
Thanks a lot for the demonstration tools and so on. I had 2 questions. So first about the tool. I know that kind of tool takes some time, especially custom. So at which point of the lifetime did you start to do it? How long did it take? Was it the same live team taking care of that?
It's been built in bits and pieces. So like the first thing, if I recall, the event, being able to do the events LiveOps, and after that shop chests. The thing, essentially we built it piece by piece by the most frequently used thing. And then as bundles became sort of more frequent, we used to do a bundle a week, now we do like 7. So that's when the bundle tool sort of came about. So it's sort of built very, very piecemeal. But it's built by one, and it wasn't just built by one person who's like, okay, you're the LiveOps tooling guy. It's, okay, this needs to be built, this is what the server guys are doing right now, just this part, this is what we need. And then as the LiveOps and product teams start working more and more closely, like we need this, that's next. And so it wasn't all built at once.
Okay, but as you mentioned, you dedicated some time in your plan to build that tool for your own,
yes, it's absolutely important to set aside that time for tooling.
Okay, and my second question is, that tool that is serving several rival kingdoms, Is it the same tool that is used in other games, or it's very specific to each game?
The Transformers one is very, very close. There's some things that they have that we want, and there's some things that we have that they want, and it's just a matter of figuring which server dev is where, who's built what, and making sure that we all get them. They can do storylines, we can't. What is it that you want, Andrew, and ours?
Streaming images into the client?
Ah, yes, the image streaming, yes, yeah, we can do that. So they've sort of because they have been built by different teams at different times, based on the different needs of the games.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, I want to double down on the question. Like, just a very rough estimation of how much time has been spent by the client and the backend to do this tooling compared to actually developing games and stuff.
A lot of these were built before I got here. I can only comment a little bit. But a lot of the infrastructure was built on that early initial phase. Our Rival Kingdoms was built with a heavy, with a very, very sort of, not necessarily LiveOps at the time, but a very, very agile structure. They wanted to be able to make as much as possible. A lot of that was front-loaded in the initial development of the game, making it actually pretty quick to build these sort of tools and add them onto it. Because Rival Kingdoms was sort of built with that in mind, that this could be the thing. Because we had already sort of seen the LiveOps sort of thing happening on Samurai Siege. We knew we'd need it. So I couldn't say the exact percentage. That's a little bit before my time. I don't know if Simon can.
Yeah, if anyone actually knows the answer to that, please shout. Yeah.
It varies.
Sorry. So the first couple sprints after launch, we spent some time, I'd say about 50% of time for the first 3 sprints, building the infrastructure for it. And then slowly over time, a sprint here, a sprint there, to build the tools as we need them. Almost all the tools were built off of existing CMS functionality that was then exported and made active from the live config, so that you could set it on the server and it would push those content changes to the client. But all of those were usually built on existing systems.
What team size, roughly?
Feel free to answer. You're on a roll.
Okay, the team size at various times, sorry, I don't actually want to answer this, but the team size is now 12. It was bigger at launch, not a whole hell of a lot bigger.
Low
but
20s, like
yeah,
20, 22, I think.
Yeah, so it's relatively 3 client devs, 2 server engineers for most of its lifetime, and then scaling down.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think the reason that's an awkward answer is because we don't account differently from tools and features. It's like everything is LiveOps and everything is features and it's all one and the same. But what we do try to do is every feature that we build, we design it with LiveOps in mind, or we consciously identify where it's not suitable for LiveOps. And so it's always part of the thinking, the design. Now it might be we ship a feature and it just doesn't fly, and so we don't invest in the tools to follow on. Or it might be the whole feature is a LiveOps tool, so it's really blended, and then as the game gets older, it's more tools, less features. But yeah, we intentionally don't distinguish between these two, and yeah, because it's one and the same.
Great.
Hi there. I'm just interested what your turnaround is for localization, because obviously you've got the tool, but you need the text.
Yeah, that localization string that's picked from our localization server, which is a separate, sort of separate from our content and our client server. And that's constantly being updated. The localization server is the one that's updated the most every single day. So as translations come in, so we can be like, I need a bundle right now, but we're only going to do it in the US and Russia. And then we get the Russian translation comes in and it's there, and the tool will pick up that one is done. And that's built to connect to our localization server. And so as those come in real time, then we get more and more access to the things in that tool.
One of the breakthroughs we had earlier when we were much more strapped with 1 game or 2 games is it didn't make sense to hire a Spanish VIP manager and a Spanish CS manager and a Spanish loc manager, and all of the outsourced localization had varying quality. So there was a point where the Spanish person was doing all of that, and our Italian country manager also spoke Turkish, so she did it all. So we've had a lot of success doing a lot of the localization ourselves and cross-training agents, so that it also makes the job more interesting, because it can be pretty soul-destroying to just always deal with CS all the time, or just deal with local all the time, and so the combination of those three jobs are really, really interesting, and so it ends up with high quality all around as a result.
Hi. The more on-the-fly events you do and dynamic content delivery, do you find you have any overhead in QA for any of this stuff? Like, are you pre-testing this stuff that you're putting live, or?
We do. It tends to be less and less, but early on, it's particularly like if it's a new feature, even if we've got a brand new tool and everything, it's all run through QA. And in fact, we have LiveOps dedicated QA here, and that is their particular focus. And so they know that tool inside out because they were testing it when it was built. So that whenever we start doing things with the tool, I'm like, oh, okay, I see this, or they know what to look for when we maybe try and do something different from it. So yeah, but then eventually it gets to the point where it's like, yeah, we've done this 800 times. I trust you. It's fine. We don't have to go through it every single time. But the newer something is, the more QA time is spent on it.
Okay. Last question.
With that in mind, have you got any safeguards? What if you put an extra 0 in?
That's why our product managers have very stressful jobs. It's not true.
Yeah, we had some war stories from the early Samurai Siege days where very small changes could have obviously impact. So yeah, we put a lot of time into tooling around these things and checking it. It's never fail-safe. We put a lot of flexibility into the tool by design. That does come with a cost in terms of stress levels of the people operating the tools and the need to be able to put something live and really see in the data real time if there's a problem, so we can roll stuff back. But so yeah, much more agile, but yeah, a lot of
all comes with that.
Yeah, all comes with that. Yeah, the good and the bad. So thanks everyone for coming out tonight. Hopefully you got something out of it. Really appreciate the turnout. I think we're going to keep the beers and food out, so feel free to mingle and hang around if you like. We'll be here. And yeah, just to reiterate my request from the start, if anyone feels the need or is inspired to share stuff and their own experiences, please hit me up. I'm happy to make the venue available or send out people to your events as guest speakers and that sort of thing, and just generally get more of these things going on if you find them useful. But thanks everyone for coming.